Congratulations, you just bought yourself a nice Ferrari 360. Perhaps you bought it as a standard, or perhaps you bought it with some updates on it. But today I'm going to talk you through some of the updates that you can make to your Ferrari 360. Updating a car like this is always somehow controversial. I'll leave it up to you if the upgrades are the ones that you want to do or the ones that you would never consider doing in a lifetime. But I want to show you some of the updates that I've done to this car and mention some of the options that you could do if you feel like it. If you're looking at it from like an investor's point of view, of course it's a good idea to keep the car completely standard. So the minute you start to do upgrades, be sure to save the original parts so that you can put them back on if you want to sell it again. The first upgrade that I want to show you is the fenders. When Ferrari made this fender, they made an angle on the inside of the fender so that when your tire came to a certain angle, it would rip out this piece of the inner fender. So not only would it damage the car, but it would also damage the wheels. So what you do is that, first of all, you don't do it yourself. You find somebody who knows what they're doing. But what they do is that they take off the wheel and they attach a fender roller and then they heat up the fender here, and then they start to roll it. And what this does is that it rolls the inner fender up like this so that the wheel can't catch the part in here. And now that we are down here anyway, let's talk about the rims. I chose to upgrade this car with the Novitec 19-inch wheels, mainly just because I think they're cool, and because I think it's close to the Ferrari heritage. The 430 came with rims that did look a little like this. Some might say that I'm way off when I'm saying this, but anyway, I think they look a little like the rims that are on the 430. The thing about these is that they are extremely wide. The width in the front are 255 and the width in the back are 345, so they are extremely wide. Inside the car there are a number of updates that you can do, but the most important one, and the one that you actually have to do, is to take care of these sticky parts. There are some parts around the car that's coated in some kind of rubbery paint, and over the years, exposed to sun and heat, it starts to get sticky, and actually in a way so that you can feel it on your fingers and it will leave marks around the car. So what you can do is, you can try it yourself, or you can ship it off to some expert on these specific matters. The door handle is one of the parts that gets sticky, and well, you can actually see it here with the scratches, and I don't know if you can, you can almost see how sticky it is. And moving on, in the middle of the car here, a panel with buttons, and here the ashtray. I actually did an upgrade to this myself, painted it with some rubber paint. You have the dials here, and actually you do have the paddles behind the wheel, but I upgraded those, so luckily I don't have to deal with that anymore. And now that we're inside the car, let's talk about the seats. I wouldn't really say it's an update, but it's definitely a maintenance part. This part of the seat has a tendency to wear pretty fast because you just you scrape your body against this part. And well, this seat is not too bad. I don't know if you can see it, but I would definitely recommend that you get it painted. I'll show you the left side of the car. And this seat was actually pretty damaged, so I sent it off to have it painted, and now I'm pretty happy with how it looks. The last thing I want to say about the seats is that they're not very big. I don't know if it's because they're made for Italians, but a guy like me, I'm really having trouble fitting into the seats. Even these are supposed to be the large ones. It's like here on the sides. I don't know if I'm too fat or I'm just too wide, but yeah, it's pretty annoying. But what some do is that they change the seat completely and save the original seats, and when they sell it back, they put the original seats back in. One very important update is one that you only should do if you're experiencing trouble with the ECU. The ECU is like the brain of the car, and it controls many functions in the car, but amongst others it controls the gear shift, and what the 360 is notoriously known for is its slow gear changes. I had trouble with my ECU and I had to change it. So instead of changing it to an original 360 ECU, they changed it to a challenge ECU, and that made a huge difference because the gear shifts were so much faster. So that's an upgrade that you should seriously consider. I want to talk a little about the paint job. Of course, you always want the paint on a car like this to be completely up to standard. So what do? Do you repaint the whole car? Do you paint some of the parts, or do you just do a spot repair? I would say it's completely up to you, but for the spot repair, I wouldn't really recommend it, because you can always see it unless you find someone who's really good at it. If you choose to paint just some panels, you want to make sure that the painter who does it is extremely well experienced, not just somebody who goes by the color code, but somebody who scans the paint on the rest of the car to make sure that the new panels are painted in the exact same color. If you have a car that's been used for 20 some years like this, you'd most certainly be sure that the paint is not the same color as the day you bought it. The reason for me to talk about the paint job is actually one serious upgrade that I highly recommend that you do. Even if you have a car that's beautiful and everything, I would recommend that you do a high-end detailing and ceramic coating. What it does, I will leave for you to examine yourself, but in short, it makes the clear coat so much more smooth, and it makes the car so much easier to clean, and it makes it easier to polish. It's just an overall good thing to do to your car. So upgrade, well, I don't know if you can call it that, but it's definitely a good thing to do for maintenance. The last thing I want to talk about in terms of paint and paint protection is protective foil. I have it applied here on the front bumper because you have all these stone chips. You would have that on any car, but on a car like this, you would really like to protect it as much as you can. I've decided only to do it to the front bumper, but some choose to cover, even the whole car, but some also choose to just cover the front. And now into some of the more serious updates. As you can see, I changed the rear grille here. I changed it into a carbon part, and I think it looks extremely cool. Another thing you can do is to go for a challenge grille. It's more like a metal with lots of tiny holes in it. That was actually the one that I considered in the beginning, but when I saw the carbon, I decided to go for that. And because I'm doing a carbon makeover over the whole car, I think it would be nice to have some kind of theme going through the car. So this was the first part that I decided to change on the outside of the car. The next thing that I will change on the outside of the car, and probably the last one, is these vents here on top of the engine. These are just plastic parts as it is. I mean, it looks cool, it looks original, nothing bad in that, but to complete the theme, I would like to change those into carbon too. Now that we're back here, let's talk about the engine bay. There are some changes that you can do in here too. I'm still talking about carbon parts, of course. The panels here are definitely some of the things that I want to change into carbon. And these lids on top of the air intakes, this for the cooler, and right there in the middle there's this boring metal looking emblem. You can change that into carbon as well, and this is also one of my plans. One of the things that I did do in the engine bay was to change the exhaust. The original exhaust doesn't really compromise the potential of the sound that this car can have. So what many people do is they actually change into something else. There are a variety of different brands that you can choose, but I chose the Capristo. I know that many people do choose the Capristo because it has this very specific sound. I would strongly advise you to go to some of the videos here on YouTube where you can spot the difference, or you can hear the difference between the different brands. In particular, there is one a comparison between Capristo, Tubi and the Standard, and that gives a very good idea on what I'm talking about. But the Capristo exhaust comes in 3 stages, and the numbers follows the sound. So this is the stage 3, and it makes a hell of a noise. The last thing I want to talk about here in the engine bay is detailing the engine. As you can see, mine is in bad need of a detailing, very dirty, but it can be done pretty easily, so I promise that this is one of the things that I'll do in a very near future. One thing that I don't want to touch at all is the engine itself. There are a number of things that you can do to upgrade the engine itself with turbos and lighter swing wheel and all kinds of things. But unless you have an expert to do it and somebody who knows exactly what they're talking about, I wouldn't touch the engine at all. And on top of that, it has 400 horsepower and it's more than enough. As I was talking about earlier, I've started to upgrade the car with some carbon parts. Let me show some of the updates that I've done inside the car. The first one I want to show you is the center console. I hope that you can make it out. I think it's absolutely beautiful. And the next one is the frame around the radio. And here behind the steering wheel, there is this box. I don't know what it's called, but I actually think it looks pretty cool. And then of course there are the pedals themselves, and this is one of the upgrades that I'm the most fond of. Some of the upgrades that I have in store is like the vents here, this whole panel with the speedometer. You can upgrade here with the speaker in the door, and the handles you can upgrade as well. And the last one is perhaps the biggest one, and the one that makes the biggest difference is this panel, this silver panel on the door. I know that my car probably looks like a Christmas tree on the inside with a little carbon parts here and a bit of original parts there, but it's a part of a process, and buying carbon parts and finding the carbon parts is both expensive and not very easy. So it's a process that takes me like a couple of years, but never mind. I know that in the end it'll be a complete theme, and I know that I'll be very happy about it. Here at the end of the video, I want to talk about some of the upgrades that some people do. And I would say that it's some upgrades that you really have to consider if you want to do it. To start out with is One of the upgrades that I myself would consider, but probably would end up not doing, it's to tint the windows. I think it looks cool, but yeah, you could do it too dark and then it would look like a gangster car, and I don't really think that's appropriate for a 360. But never mind, it's up to the who owns the car. This one is 13 centimeters off the ground, so when some people lower it even further and maybe add on side skirts as well, I would say that the car would get extremely difficult to use on an everyday basis. But just to drive around the town in a car that's as low as that, I wouldn't really recommend it. And now for my absolute favorite update. And I hope that you know that I'm being sarcastic here, because standing back here, I think you might already know what I'm talking about. The rear spoiler. On some cars, the rear spoiler does the whole car. There is an iconic F40 that is just amazing to look at, and also because of the spoiler that it has. But when you start to add a spoiler to any other car, you really have to know what you're doing. Adding a spoiler to this car, I would never ever consider doing it. But I've seen some guy upgrading his car, and I think it's the most upgraded 360 in the whole world. He has a rear spoiler, and on his it looks cool, so it can be done. And the last update I want to mention is the radio. The Ferrari 360 comes with a Becker radio, and some would say that it's so classic that you shouldn't touch it. I would say that I do agree, but when some starts to change it with infotainment system, Himagashi or whatever they're called, I think it's completely against the soul of the car. So yeah, but then again, I'm not to be the judge on what people do to their cars, as long as they're happy. That about sums it up for the video of the day, and if you agree with me, post it in the comment section below. If you don't agree with me, yeah, post a comment as well. And until next time, remember to subscribe and take care.